On November 4, 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter made what is often called the greatest archaeological discovery of all time, the tomb of Tutankhamun. It had been buried in Egypt's Valley of the Kings for over 3,200 years. The tomb contained over 5,000 artifacts, golden masks, chariots, furniture, weapons, and jewelry, a treasure trove that captured the world's imagination and has not let go since. But here is what nobody talks about. Tutankhamun's tomb is completely wrong. Not wrong in the sense that it is fake or misidentified. Wrong in the sense that almost everything about it violates the established patterns of Egyptian royal burial practices. The tomb is too small. It is in the wrong location. It was built too quickly. The burial chamber walls show evidence of hasty painting. The sarcophagus has modifications suggesting it was not originally intended for Tutankhamun. And most tellingly, many of the artifacts inside, including possibly the famous golden mask itself, show signs of having been made for someone else and hastily reinscribed. These details all point to a fundamental violation of expectations. They violate what we would expect from a royal tomb. For a century, Egyptologists have noticed these anomalies, but treated them as minor curiosities, explained away by the fact that Tutankhamun died unexpectedly young, around age 19, forcing a rushed burial in whatever tomb was available. But in the last decade, new evidence has emerged that challenges this comfortable explanation. Advanced imaging technology, chemical analysis, and careful re-examination of the original excavation records reveal that the tomb's irregularities are not just about speed. They are about something far stranger. Tutankhamun's burial appears to be a cover-up, a hasty concealment of a pharaoh whose very existence the subsequent dynasty wanted erased from history. The clue everyone keeps missing? Hidden doorways that might lead to chambers containing the burial of one of history's most controversial figures, a ruler so despised that their name was chiseled off monuments across Egypt. Let's break down what makes this tomb so impossible, and why the conventional explanation does not hold up under scrutiny. First, understand the basics. Egyptian royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings followed established patterns. They were massive undertakings, requiring years or even decades to construct. The typical royal tomb featured long descending corridors, multiple chambers, elaborate wall decorations covering every surface with religious texts and imagery, and a burial chamber positioned deep underground. Tutankhamun's tomb has none of these features. Instead, it consists of 4 small rooms, an entrance corridor, an antechamber, a burial chamber, and a small treasury. The total floor space is roughly 110 square meters, about the size of a modest modern apartment. For comparison, the tomb of Seti I, Tutankhamun's second successor, covers over 540 square meters with multiple levels and elaborate corridors. The tomb's axis is also wrong. It descends at a steep angle from the entrance, makes a sharp right turn, then levels off, an unusual configuration suggesting it was originally designed as a private tomb for a noble, not royalty. Royal tombs typically follow straight, gradually descending axes aligned with religious symbolism. More strangely, the burial chamber is the only room with decorated walls. In proper royal tombs, every surface is covered with intricate paintings and hieroglyphic texts, protection spells, religious imagery, and guides for the deceased's journey to the afterlife. Tutankhamun's antechamber, treasury, and corridor have bare limestone walls. Only the burial chamber received decoration, and even that appears rushed. The painting style in the burial chamber is inconsistent with royal tomb decoration from Tutankhamun's period. The figures are less refined, the proportions slightly off, the color application uneven. Most tellingly, chemical analysis of the paint layers conducted in 2015 revealed that the walls were painted while still damp, a technique that speeds the process but produces inferior results. Royal tombs were typically allowed to dry completely before painting to ensure durability and quality. Why would the burial chamber of a pharaoh, even a young one, receive hasty, substandard decoration? The conventional explanation is time pressure. Tutankhamun died unexpectedly, possibly from complications of a broken leg becoming infected. His successor, I, had only the standard 70 days of mummification to prepare a tomb. An unfinished private tomb was commandeered, quickly modified, and hastily decorated. But this explanation has problems. I himself was elderly, possibly in his 60s, when he became pharaoh. He would have already been preparing his own tomb for years, as was customary for high officials. Why not use that tomb for Tutankhamun and take the young king's intended tomb for himself? That would be the logical solution if time was truly the issue. Instead, A buried Tutankhamun in what appears to be a converted private tomb, then had a much larger, more elaborate royal tomb constructed for himself, K523, which he occupied after his own death just 4 years later. This suggests the issue was not available tomb space. It was something else. Now let's talk about the artifacts, because this is where things get truly bizarre. Many items in Tutankhamun's tomb show clear evidence of modification. Names have been changed, inscriptions altered, and cartouches, the oval frames that contain royal names, were recarved. At first, archaeologists assumed these were handed down from earlier rulers and repurposed for the young king. But detailed analysis reveals something stranger. The modifications were not adding Tutankhamun's name to old objects. They were replacing someone else's name with Tutankhamun's. The most famous example is the golden death mask itself, the iconic image that has become synonymous with ancient Egypt. In 2015, Dr. Nicholas Reeves, a British Egyptologist, published research pointing out anomalies in the mask's construction. The face and the headdress are made from different gold alloys. The pierced ears, unusual for male pharaohs but standard for queens, suggest the mask was originally made for a female ruler. Most tellingly, the cartouche containing Tutankhamun's name shows evidence of modification. The name appears to be a later addition, carved over an earlier inscription. If the mask was not originally made for Tutankhamun, who was it made for? The same question applies to other items. The second coffin, one of 3 nested coffins that contained the mummy, has a face that does not quite match the other 2. The golden bands around it show signs of reinscription. The canopic coffinettes, the miniature coffins that held the pharaoh's preserved organs, display feminine facial features inconsistent with male royal iconography. Several furniture pieces bear traces of altered cartouches. Scanning electron microscopy conducted on these objects revealed that names were carefully chiseled out and replaced, with the replacements attempting to match the original carving style, but showing subtle differences in tool marks and depth. This is not random repurposing. This is systematic reattribution of grave goods originally intended for someone else, someone important enough to have had items made from solid gold and precious materials, but someone whose name needed to be erased. Here is where history provides a compelling candidate, Nefertiti. Nefertiti was the great royal wife of Akhenaten, who was Tutankhamun's father. She was one of the most powerful women in Egyptian history, possibly serving as co-regent or even as sole ruler after Akhenaten's death and before Tutankhamun took the throne. But after Tutankhamun's death, Nefertiti vanishes from the historical record. Her tomb has never been found. No mummy definitively identified as Nefertiti has ever been discovered. The Amarna period, the era of Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and Tutankhamun, was a time of radical religious upheaval. Akhenaten attempted to replace Egypt's traditional polytheistic religion with worship of a single god, Aten. This religious revolution was deeply unpopular. After Tutankhamun's death, subsequent rulers worked systematically to erase all evidence of the Amarna period, destroying monuments, defacing inscriptions, and attempting to wipe Akhenaten's family from history. Could Tutankhamun's tomb actually be Nefertiti's, hastily repurposed when the young king died unexpectedly? This would explain the feminine features on several artifacts, the modified cartouches, and the tomb's unusual size and layout, appropriate for a powerful queen but inadequate for a pharaoh. In 2015, Dr. Reeves proposed something even more radical based on high-resolution scans of the burial chamber walls. He claimed to have detected the outlines of two hidden doorways, one in the north wall and one in the west wall, covered with plaster and painted over to conceal their existence. If true, these doorways could lead to additional chambers that might still contain an intact burial. Reeves suggested that the western door leads to a storage chamber, but the northern door, positioned directly behind the wall where Tutankhamun's sarcophagus rests, could open into the actual burial chamber of Nefertiti herself. This hypothesis sent shockwaves through Egyptology. If correct, it would mean the greatest archaeological discovery of the 20th century is actually an antechamber to an even greater discovery still waiting to be found. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities initially endorsed exploratory investigations. Ground-penetrating radar scans were conducted in 2015 and 2016 by different teams using different equipment. The results were contradictory and controversial. A Japanese team carried out the first scan, and they detected anomalies consistent with hollow spaces behind both walls. They reported a 90% probability that voids existed behind the northern wall, potentially chambers containing organic and metallic materials, exactly what you would expect in an undisturbed burial. A second scan in 2016 by an American team using more advanced equipment found no evidence of voids. That team concluded the walls were solid limestone with natural fissures that might have caused the Japanese readings. A third investigation in 2018 by an Italian team using even more sophisticated ground-penetrating radar produced mixed results, possible voids in some areas and solid rock in others. The methodology was questioned by both sides. As of 2025, the situation remains unresolved. The Egyptian government, wary of damaging the tomb and skeptical of the evidence, has not authorized physical exploration of the walls. Without drilling or cutting into the plaster, definitive proof remains elusive. Even so, the hidden doorway theory explains so much about the tomb's anomalies that it has gained significant traction among researchers, including some who are skeptical of the Nefertiti connection specifically. Consider the burial chamber's dimensions. It is oddly proportioned, longer than it is wide, with the sarcophagus positioned along one wall rather than centered. Remove the sarcophagus visually, and the room looks incomplete, as if it is meant to be an antechamber leading to something else. The wall paintings support this interpretation. On 3 walls, you see the expected funeral imagery: Tutankhamun's mummy being dragged on a sled, priests performing rituals, the pharaoh meeting Osiris in the afterlife. But the north wall, where Reeves detected the hidden doorway, shows something different. It shows Tutankhamun's successor, performing the opening of the mouth ceremony on Tutankhamun. This ceremony was typically performed by the heir on the deceased ruler, but the way it is depicted is unusual. Is dressed and crowned as pharaoh, while Tutankhamun is shown as Osiris, the god of the afterlife, not as a pharaoh. It is as if the painting is establishing I's legitimacy as the new ruler, rather than honoring Tutankhamun. Some researchers interpret this as evidence that the burial chamber was not originally designed for Tutankhamun at all. The painting may have been added after the fact to legitimize A's succession, painted over a doorway that once led to the actual burial chamber beyond. There is also the issue of the tomb's contents. Over 5,000 artifacts in 110 square meters creates absurd density. Items were literally piled on top of each other, stuffed into every available space. When Carter first opened the antechamber, he found it so crammed with objects that it took months to carefully remove and catalog everything before they could even access the burial chamber. This is not how royal tombs were typically organized. Grave goods were carefully arranged with religious and symbolic significance, each item placed deliberately. Tutankhamun's tomb looks like someone frantically emptied a warehouse into the available space, prioritizing volume over order. Why? The conventional explanation is that Tutankhamun was young and beloved, so courtiers showered his burial with gifts. But many of the objects are practical items: furniture, clothing, food supplies, not ceremonial treasures. It looks less like an outpouring of grief and more like a hasty transfer of someone's entire household into inadequate storage. If the tomb was originally intended as an antechamber to a larger burial complex, this would make sense. The antechamber would have been the staging area where grave goods were organized before being moved into the main burial chamber. When Tutankhamun died unexpectedly and the decision was made to use this space as his final resting place, everything was shoved in without the time or space to organize properly. Recent examination of the tomb's excavation records, Carter's original notes and photographs, has revealed additional oddities that went unremarked at the time. The doorway to the burial chamber shows evidence of having been opened and resealed at least twice before Carter arrived. The plaster seals bear different cartouches, Tutankhamun's, and also what appear to be necropolis seals, used by officials rather than funerary seals. This suggests that officials entered the burial chamber after the initial interment, possibly to make modifications or remove items. Several artifacts in the tomb show signs of having been replaced or rearranged after the original burial. Boxes were opened, contents disturbed, then resealed with different seals. Some objects were found in positions that made no logical sense. Valuable items carelessly stacked, ritual objects separated from their sets. Carter attributed this to ancient tomb robbers who had twice broken into the tomb in antiquity. But the robbery explanation does not fit the evidence. Tomb robbers target portable valuables, jewelry, gold objects, oils, and perfumes. They do not rearrange furniture or carefully reseal boxes after disturbing them. And they certainly do not enter only the burial chamber while leaving the antechamber, which was packed with gold and treasures, relatively undisturbed. The pattern suggests official access, not robbery. Someone with authority entered the tomb after the burial and made specific modifications, possibly removing evidence of the tomb's original owner and completing the conversion to Tutankhamun's burial. There is one more piece of evidence that has been hiding in plain sight for a century: Tutankhamun's mummy itself. When Carter unwrapped the mummy in 1925, he found extensive damage. The body had been burned, possibly by a chemical reaction between the oils used in mummification and the wrappings. The mummy was in pieces, many bones broken. The arms and legs had to be detached to remove the golden jewelry fused to the remains. Subsequent CT scans in 2005 and 2010 revealed even more anomalies. The mummy was missing its sternum and parts of its ribs, not damage from unwrapping, but injuries that occurred before mummification. The skull showed unusual damage patterns, inconsistent with normal mummification practices. Most strangely, the mummy's arms are positioned in an unusual configuration. Pharaohs were typically mummified with arms crossed over the chest, right over left. Tutankhamun's arms are positioned differently, in a stance more commonly associated with female burials. Could the entire burial, the tomb, artifacts, and even the mummification have been a hasty improvisation after Tutankhamun's unexpected death, using materials and spaces originally prepared for someone else? The accumulated evidence suggests something extraordinary happened at the end of the Amarna period. A powerful figure, possibly Nefertiti, possibly another Amarna royal, had a tomb prepared with lavish grave goods. When Tutankhamun died unexpectedly young, officials made a decision. They converted that tomb into Tutankhamun's burial, modified artifacts by changing cartouches, sealed doorways that led to chambers meant to remain hidden, and presented the whole thing as a proper royal burial. This would have served multiple purposes. It gave Tutankhamun a respectable burial, despite the lack of a prepared royal tomb. It concealed evidence of Amarna period royalty that subsequent rulers wanted erased from history. And it created a convenient fiction that simplified the succession narrative. The subsequent erasure campaign supports this theory. Within decades of Tutankhamun's death, his name was being systematically removed from monuments. King lists skipped over both Akhenaten and Tutankhamun, jumping directly from Amenhotep III to Horemheb. The official history acted as if the entire Amarna period never happened. Why go to such lengths? Religious politics. The Amarna period's monotheistic revolution threatened the powerful priesthood of Amun. When traditional religion was restored after Tutankhamun's death, the priests wanted all evidence of Aten worship eliminated. Akhenaten became the rebel pharaoh. His family became embarrassments to be forgotten. If Tutankhamun's tomb contains hidden chambers with another burial, opening them would require disturbing one of archaeology's most important sites. The risk of damage is real. The political and cultural sensitivity is enormous. Egypt guards its antiquities fiercely, and the memory of colonial-era excavations that saw treasures removed to foreign museums still stings. But if the hidden chambers exist and contain an intact burial, it would represent an archaeological discovery, potentially exceeding even the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb itself. An undisturbed royal burial from the Amarna period could answer countless questions about this mysterious era and settle debates that have raged for decades. The evidence for hidden chambers remains circumstantial but compelling. The tomb's anomalies demand explanation. The modified artifacts suggest deliberate concealment. The ground-penetrating radar results, while contradictory, showed enough promise that multiple teams thought further investigation was warranted. What's stopping us from finding out? Caution, certainly. Politics, definitely. But also the knowledge that once those walls are breached, if there is anything behind them at all, we can never go back. If chambers exist, and we damage them in exploration, we destroy what we are trying to discover. If they do not exist, and we drill through the walls of Tutankhamun's burial chamber based on inconclusive evidence, we have defaced one of history's greatest treasures. So, the mystery remains. The clue everyone keeps missing, that Tutankhamun's tomb is fundamentally wrong for a pharaonic burial, has been visible since 1922. The evidence of modification, reuse, and concealment has been documented in excavation reports for a century. The possibility of hidden chambers gained technological support through modern imaging. But without the political will to authorize invasive investigation, we are stuck with theories and possibilities. Tutankhamun's tomb keeps its secrets behind walls that might be solid stone, or might be hiding the greatest archaeological discovery still waiting to be made. The young pharaoh's burial was meant to be his eternal resting place. Instead, it might be an antechamber, literally and figuratively, to understanding one of ancient Egypt's most controversial periods. The tomb that captivated the world a century ago might be concealing something even more extraordinary, just feet away from where millions of tourists have stood, staring at painted walls that could be hiding doorways to chambers sealed for over 3,000 years. Until someone decides to look behind those walls, we will not know. And that uncertainty, that tantalizing possibility, might be the greatest secret Tutankhamun's tomb still holds. If ancient mysteries that challenge everything we thought we knew fascinate you, subscribe now, because we are uncovering secrets that have been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years.